Hare Krishna. So here we are starting the new semester of Bhagavad-Gita. So this fall semester, we're going to hopefully complete the first 10 chapters of the Bhagavad-Gita with a little luck. And it's going to be exciting because, oh, can someone close that, please? We have some different teachers. We're going to be having Champakalata Saki, Devi Dasi, and we know Kovida Prabhu and Nandanandana Prabhu, Shruti-Sagar Prabhu, Rajananda Prabhu, Kumari Saki Prabhu, and myself. So there'll be some variety with teachers, and yeah, I think that's going to make it really nice. Get different perspectives on things. I mean, I'm leaving it up to the teacher's discretion if they want to do the songs. Nanda's just going to be doing a few thematic classes. So yeah, I'm not expecting her to do the songs. But anyways, so I've shared with those of you who are doing Bhakti Shastri and have to memorize shlokas, I've shared a folder which has the songs. So you have access to them. So even if the teachers don't sing them, you have them.
You recorded them personally yourself?
Yeah, it was with the Bhakti Shastri class that I was teaching in Mayapur. Gaurangi Gandharika was one of my students then, so you can hear her voice there. And yeah, but there's a bunch. There's about 8 girls all singing them in unison. Okay, so then, without any further ado, let us begin. So we're gonna do Mangalacharana. The Mangalacharana mantras that we're going to chant at the start of every class are in the introduction to the Bhagavad-Gita. They're the first thing in the introduction. And introduction is on page 1 of, I think, most, if not all, editions of the Bhagavad-Gita. So we can chant these together. Ready? Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militan Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Sabhadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yeah. So, I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to look at something, hopefully. Oh yeah, I think this will work. Yeah. Okay, can you see that? 12 aims of Shastric study. Is it there?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is nice because 12 aims of Shastric study. So we're about to start a serious Shastric study of the Bhagavad-Gita. And so this is to get a sense of what we can expect to achieve, or what things we can get out of studying Srila Prabhupada's books. So the first thing is knowledge. We can just learn facts, analogies, philosophical points that can help us understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness better, and also knowledge in terms of learning verses and references for preaching. So just enriching ourselves with knowledge. So the knowledge is kind of like the basic thing you get from studying. And you can know something without really, understanding it or applying it. So we need to go beyond just knowledge for knowledge's sake as practicing devotees. So then the next level is understanding. So understanding means that you need to be able to explain it in your own words. So then, it's good to ask questions, to share reflections, share your thoughts about what we're reading, relate it to your own experience, and come up with your own analogies, like Christine is very good at doing, and many others too. And explain the implications of the concept for just the world. And then, having understood it, then the next thing is to apply it. So put that knowledge into practice in your life. Right. And then along with the knowledge comes values, because it's spiritual knowledge. So spiritual knowledge is very much like intertwined with values. So to imbibe those, to internalize those values in our own practice, in our own behavior. Then preaching application. So then we know something, we've understood it very well, we can explain it, we've applied it to our own lives. So then the next thing is to give it to others. So we should be able to, as a result of studying, be able to present logical arguments based on scriptures and use Shastric references and quotes to back that up. And then learning the verses is also a part of that. And then when we do those things, when we apply it and when we share with others, then that increases our faith in Krishna consciousness, because we feel how the philosophy, how that knowledge is actually changing our hearts, changing our perspective on the world. And we also see how it's changing other people's lives. When we share it with others, we see how their lives are becoming enriched and they're becoming happy through Krishna consciousness. So it's nice to be able to express that faith and express those realizations and convictions in our own words. Then an important aspect of studying is authority. So to explain why we need to accept the Vedic authority. And this is also linked with faith. So faith comes from experience, and faith also comes from authority. Like when you trust the authority, then you can have faith, and you can also be able to deal with doubts that may come up in relation to that authority. And hermeneutics is an important part of that. Then there's theological applications. So to show how the philosophy of Krishna consciousness is relevant in the world today, and to apply the knowledge that we get from books like Bhagavad-Gita to a whole range of moral, social, personal, and theological issues. So to apply the philosophy to just real world issues that people are like, things that you read in the newspaper, things like, the whole pandemic and stuff, everything can relate Krishna consciousness to. Then moving into more like higher level thinking skills, there's evaluation. So evaluation means that being able to resolve contradictions and looking at different practices. Some may be like higher level, some may be lower level. So try to determine the merits and demerits of practices, and then distinguish between principles and details. So these are all things that we're going to discuss as we go through the Bhagavad-Gita. And then this is something that we're going to look at today, mood and mission. To explain how Srila Prabhupada's statements reflect his mood and or mission. How many of you attended Sureshwara Prabhu's seminar? Most people here. How about out there? Janaki and And anybody else out there on Zoom? Okay. So he did a whole thing on Prabhupada's mission, right? It was like who Prabhupada is, what ISKCON is, what it's all about, and his mission. Especially there's one session that he did that was finding your mission within the mission. That was there. I remember that from a long time ago. I thought that was really interesting. So when we read Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada said that if you really want to know me, then read my books. Because Prabhupada gave us not only, Krishna's words and the explanations of those words, but Prabhupada put a lot of his own heart into his books. His personality is in his books. His view of the world, his enthusiasm, his faith in his spiritual master and Krishna. It's all here in his books. And also there's many places in his purports where he outlines his vision for a Krishna conscious world and his mission for how to make that happen. So it's nice when we go through to be able to identify, oh, this is Srila Prabhupada. Here's Srila Prabhupada stating his mission, or aspects of Prabhupada's mood, like Prabhupada's character, Prabhupada's personality, and how it manifests in his writing. Very nice, because the writer's personality is always there, in the book, because it's personal. Yeah, and then because we're followers of Srila Prabhupada, then when we understand his mood and mission, then that's important for us, because that if we're followers of Srila Prabhupada, then his mission is also our mission. This is members of his movement. Okay, and then we have academic integrity. So this is being able to identify ways that someone might misuse scripture and to be able to use references appropriately. And then Shastra Chakshush, means seeing the world through the eyes of scripture. So being able to apply what we've learned to real life situations and appreciate how Krishna is present everywhere and controlling everything. Okay, so these are some things that we want to try to highlight as we go through the Bhagavad-Gita and reading Srila Prabhupada's purports, and hopefully have a transformative experience in this study. Any questions or comments on this? Last two? Yeah, you have this. For those who are doing Bhakti Shastri, all the essays will relate to one or more of these things, usually one prominent one. All right, Evan? Okay. So today we are going to do the preface of the Bhagavad-Gita. And as we read the preface, I want you to make a mental note or note it down on paper. Whatever we see here in Srila Prabhupada's preface that elucidates some aspect of his mission or his mood in presenting Bhagavad-Gita. So I'm going to stop sharing here. All right, a lot of names here. Okay, who wants to start? Should we just start with Christina and go around? And some Zoom people can. I think Zoom microphone is best, because then it goes directly to all of the Zoom participants.
Okay.
So you should be, if you're not already logged into Zoom, people present in the room, then please log in.
Okay, preface, first paragraph. Originally, I wrote Bhagavad-Gita as it is in the form in which it is presented now. When this book was first published, the original manuscript was, unfortunately, cut short to less than 400 pages, without illustrations and without explanations for most of the original verses of the Srimad Bhagavad-Gita. In all of my other books, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Ishapanishad, etc., the system is that I gave the original verse, its English transliteration, word-for-word Sanskrit English equivalents, translations, and purports. This makes the book very authentic and scholarly and makes the meaning self-evident. I was not very happy, therefore, when I had to minimize our original manuscript. But later on, when the demand for Bhagavad-Gita as it is considerably increased, I was requested by many scholars and devotees to present the book in its original form. Thus, The present attempt is to offer the original manuscript of this great book of knowledge with full parampara explanation in order to establish the Krishna consciousness movement more soundly and progressively.
Right. Anyone know what Prabhupada's referring to here?
This has really bad echo. Did you hear something?
I did actually. I just unmuted. Oh, Max, you disconnected. Hmm.
I guess this one is just.
Okay, they're saying it's Christina's mic. All right, well, does anyone know what Prabhupada's talking about here when he's saying that he was really disappointed when he wasn't able, the first Bhagavad Gita wasn't, didn't include everything? Jeremiah? Can you speak into a mic? Neil?
Like this really old copy of Prabhupada's Bhagavad-Gita as it is, and there was no like, I don't even think there was a Sanskrit text or anything. It was just like it was like the text and then like the purports, but that was it. There's nothing else to it but that. And so I'm thinking he's talking about that edition.
Maybe, yeah. The first edition that was published was the Macmillan edition. And so, you know, Macmillan is a big publishing company. So, you know, he gave it to them and then they just kind of like did with it what they, as you know, they dealt with it as they saw fit. And so they didn't want, they thought, what's the use of having all the, you know, word for word meanings? And I think they also chopped out some of the purports or shortened some of the purports like that. So Srila Prabhupada wasn't, he wasn't happy with that because he thought, well, when people see the word for word translation, the word for word synonyms, then they're going to understand that the translations are accurate. It's not just, you know, I didn't just make this up. So, yeah. So then he was really happy when the Bhagavad Gita came out in its full glory, the way that he intended it. And what does Prabhupada say here about why he wanted it to be complete? Max?
So that Krishna consciousness could be more firmly established.
Yeah, to establish the Krishna consciousness movement more soundly and progressively. So yeah, he saw that this was really, he understood that the books were the basis. That was already his vision. So if the books were, you know, complete, then the foundation is complete. It's going to be strong because this is what it's based on, and it will be established soundly and progressively. Partha?
Sounded like he wasn't just writing them for devotees also. He was writing them for the scholars to be accepted widely. He wanted them to be authoritative and academically impressive also.
Yeah, he says that. So that's another reason why he wanted the whole Bible. He says, this makes the book very authentic and scholarly. So he wanted it to appeal to scholars, and he also wanted it to be authentic and authoritative. Yeah, good. So would you say these are aspects of Prabhupada's mood or mission or both?
The part about establishing the Krishna consciousness movement sounds like more like mission, and then the authentic and scholarly sounds more like mood.
It's one of the purposes of ISKCON to distribute and produce literature expounding the Vedic truths.
Yeah, I would say this is more of a mission thing. So the mission is to produce a book which is authentic and scholarly and clear in order that the movement can be established soundly and progressively on the basis of the book, on the basis of Shastra. Yeah. Okay.
Here you go. Is it ready? Our
Krishna consciousness movement is genuine, historically authorized, natural, and transcendental due to its being based on Bhagavad-Gita as it is. It is gradually becoming the most popular movement in the entire world, especially amongst the younger generation. It is becoming more and more interesting to the older generation also. Older gentlemen are becoming interested, so much so that the fathers and grandfathers of my disciples are encouraging us by becoming life members of our great society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. In Los Angeles, many fathers and mothers used to come see me to express their feelings of gratitude for my leading the Krishna Consciousness movement throughout the entire world. Some of them said that it is greatly fortunate for the Americans that I have started the Krishna Consciousness movement in America, but actually the original father of this movement is Lord Krishna himself, since it was started a very long time ago, but is coming down to human society by disciplic succession. If I had any credit in this connection, it does not belong to me personally, but it is due to my eternal spiritual master, his divine grace, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivra Karya 108 Srimad Bhakti Datta Saraswati Goswami Mahara Prabhupada.
Okay. It's a long name, right? So what do we see here in terms of mood or mission? Okay, Max says the mood is serving the spiritual master's instruction. Any other aspects to that? Zoom people, please feel free to raise your hands or just unmute yourselves in the discussions. Paula.
Not taking credit for any.
Wait, I need to turn on my speaker. Okay, go ahead.
He's not taking credit for anything.
He's not taking credit for anything. Okay, good. Yeah, he's saying that they're glorifying me, they're thanking me for this, starting this movement, but actually, if there's any credit, it's not mine, but it goes to my spiritual master. So that's a very important aspect of Srila Prabhupada's mood, that he never took the credit for himself. He always deferred to his spiritual master and to Krishna and Parampara. So that's something important for us to remember, you know, as we go ahead with all of our projects and services and missions within the mission, that whatever success we have, we should consider that that's due to the blessings and it's actually the credit of all the senior devotees who have helped us along the way, our spiritual masters. Okay. All right, let's continue. Go ahead, Janux.
This is Casey.
Casey.
I just wanted to add that you mentioned like looking at Prabhupada's like intention when we're reading this, and I think like him expressing this like humility and gratitude to his spiritual master is important in like the analyzation of the author's intention, because it just shows like, yeah, like his humility, and I don't know, I feel like it gives like the reader some trust that this person isn't some like power hungry, like egotistical guy. Like he's not even taking credit for like starting the movement or writing the book. He's just trying to like offer us the information without taking any credit.
Yeah, it's actually amazing, because the tendency is for people to want to always get credit, even for things that they didn't even do. They want to get the credit, you know, they're trying to give themselves credit for things they didn't even do. And here Prabhupada did an amazing thing. And he did it clearly single-handedly without any help. He came over on a boat by himself and he did it. He wrote the books, he distributed the books, he did everything, and he's not taking the credit. It's like, it's almost inconceivable to us. Yeah, let me try something on my speaker. Oh yeah, I think that can work. Okay, let's go ahead here with the next paragraph. Trish.
If I personally have any credit in this matter, it is only that I have tried to present Bhagavad-Gita as it is, without any adulteration. Before my presentation of Bhagavad-Gita as it is, almost all the English editions of Bhagavad-Gita were introduced to fulfill someone's personal ambition. But our attempt in presenting Bhagavad-Gita as it is to present the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Our business is to present the will of Krishna, not that any mundane speculator like the politician, philosopher, or scientist, for they have very little knowledge of Krishna. Despite all their other knowledge, when Krishna says despite all their other knowledge, when Krishna says man mana bhava mad bhakto madhya jimam namaskuru, etc., we, unlike the so-called scholars, do not say that Krishna and his inner spirit are different. Krishna is absolute, and there is no difference between Krishna's name, Krishna's form, Krishna's qualities, Krishna's pastimes, etc. This absolute position of Krishna is difficult to understand for any person who is not a devotee of Krishna in the system of parampara, disciplic succession. Generally, the so-called scholars, politicians, philosophers, and swamis, without perfect knowledge of Krishna, tried to banish or kill Krishna when writing commentary on Bhagavad-Gita. Such unauthorized commentary upon Bhagavad-Gita is known as Mayavad Bhashya. And Lord Chaitanya has warned us about these unauthorized men. Lord Chaitanya clearly says that anyone who tries to understand the Bhagavad-Gita from the Mayavadi point of view will commit a great blunder. The result of such a blunder will be that the misguided student of Bhagavad-Gita will certainly be bewildered on the path of spiritual guidance and will not be able to go back home, back to Godhead.
All right, what do we have here? Evan, is that a hand up? Oh, Evan has a question. Go ahead. Yeah. Just, can you speak in a mic?
So people might feel like who's going to find that, like what is the
Yeah, that's a good, yeah, he doesn't. I guess he's waiting that we read on. I think, you know, in Srila Prabhupada's mind, you know, sometimes when you're so familiar with something, it's like sometimes when we're also speaking to brand new people, it's like you really have to do a double take on what you take for granted. Because sometimes we speak in a way that's just, we just assume that everybody knows because it's to us, it's something so, you know, like obvious, like, so I think it's a little bit like that, Srila Prabhupada for him. Lord Chaitanya, he grew up, you know, he was born in a Gaudiya Vaishnava family. So from his birth, you know, it would be like us saying something about Jesus Christ and not saying who he was because we assume everybody knows, you know, in the Western world or something.
Also, we also think that when you put the tongue, capital L more as itself, already in it, and also in the people to further research these personalities, and then you find out that they're a philosopher and there's some planet.
Yeah. Yeah, if the person's open-minded, they can just research it or ask. But that's also why it's good to study the books in the association of devotees, because then it can clarify these things immediately when they come up. Not really, not so much. Yeah, in West Bengal, most people know him. Other parts, not so much. Because of the work of ISKCON, he's getting to be more widely known gradually. Okay, so in this paragraph, did you see any mood or mission? Mission. All right, Max, tell us.
Our business is to present the will of Krishna.
Okay, present the will of Krishna. Just give the message as it is, right? He said that's why we presented it as it is, as Krishna gave it. When Krishna says surrender unto me, that's what we're saying is surrender to Krishna. Establish the absolute position of Krishna. Yeah, good. Because Bhagavad-Gita is spoken by Krishna, so we want to make sure, Prabhupada wanted to make sure everyone understood who Krishna is. Because a lot of people, they read Bhagavad-Gita as a philosophical text, but they don't really understand who Krishna is. So that was one of Prabhupada's main missions in presenting the Bhagavad-Gita, is make it very clear who Krishna is. Partha?
I felt a little bit of his mood in sense of like transparency. I'm just giving you what it is. I'm not trying to manipulate it or anything. There's
Yeah.
so many
Yeah, again, he uses this word credit. He said before, I don't have any credit. I'm just, whatever credit is my spiritual master. But if I have any credit, it's just that I presented it without any adulteration. That I've just like the postman, I just got the letter and I just passed it on. Or like the, what's the word, like the, what's that? Postal peon, yeah. Or you pick a mango from a tree, you just pass it down. Like you don't take a bite out of it. Or
transparent via medium.
Transparent via medium, yes. That's what the spiritual master is meant to be. That through him you see the next person, you see the message. Okay, good. Maybe I should make a note of these things. I have a whiteboard on my computer. No, that's weird.
But like to establish that this is not like that my life.
To defeat Mayavad philosophy?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really upset already with these Mayavadis who try to banish or kill Krishna when writing their commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita and they're going to comment on the Bhagavad Gita and try to banish Krishna and kill Krishna. What nonsense.
What is my life?
It's- Let's finish this purport first, this preface. Okay, I'll add to that as we go. Let's go to the next reader.
Prabhupada Priya, it's Loka. May I ask a quick question?
Oh, we got lost here now.
Haribol, Prabhupada Priya? It's Loka. May I ask a
Going to
question?
see. Okay, Haribol, Paula.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's Loka.
Oh, Loka, sorry, Loka.
May I ask it? Here's my question in this particular paragraph. Mood and mission strike me as being a little intertwined because he finishes off this paragraph in talking about making a blunder. If you follow the Mayavadi philosophy, you're making a blunder, and then you will not get to go home and go back and go to Godhead. And it seems as though yes, the mission he wanted to present appropriately, but his mood is also very much about wanting to throw that lifeline to the conditioned souls. So it seems to me like they're kind of intertwined, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm just curious about your take.
No, I mean, you're exactly right, because of course the mission is going to be coming from, it's coming from a deep place in Prabhupada's heart, a place of compassion, because it's out of his compassion for the conditioned souls that he doesn't want them to, commit this great blunder of being misguided and bewildered on the path of spiritual guidance. So definitely they're intertwined. Thank you for pointing that out. All right.
Our only purpose is to present this Bhagavad Gita as it is, in order to guide the conditioned student to the same purpose for which Krishna descends to this planet once in a day of Brahma, or every 8,600,000,000 years. This purpose is stated in Bhagavad Gita, and we have to accept it as it is. Otherwise, there is no point in trying to understand the Bhagavad Gita and its speaker, Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna first spoke Bhagavad Gita to the sun god some hundreds of millions of years ago. We have to accept this fact and thus understand the historical significance of Bhagavad Gita without misinterpretation on the authority of Krishna. To interpret Bhagavad Gita without any reference to the will of Krishna is the greatest offense. In order to save oneself from this offense, one has to understand the Lord as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as he was directly understood by Arjuna, Lord Krishna's first disciple. Such understanding of Bhagavad Gita is really profitable and authorized for the welfare of human society and fulfilling the mission of life.
Right. So what do we see here? Moods or missions? Fulfilling the mission of life, which is what? Jai.
Understanding without misinterpreting.
Understanding without misinterpreting. Yes. Good. And he talks here a lot about the will of Krishna, right? He says our purpose, this is definitely a mission, because he says our only purpose in presenting Bhagavad Gita is to present this Bhagavad Gita as it is in order to guide the conditioned student to that same purpose for which Krishna descends to this world. So why does Krishna descend to the world? Okay, so to deliver the pious, to annihilate the miscreants, and to reestablish the principles of religion. So in this Bhagavad Gita, how is Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita delivering the pious? He's giving us the way out. He's giving us the process of bhakti, so by which we can get delivered from the cycle of birth and death and go back to Godhead. Yeah. And how is he annihilating miscreants? He's defeating the Mayavadis. And Bhagavad Gita also directly speaks about the demonic and the divine and the demoniac propensities, right? So he's pointing out, this is the demoniac propensity. He's, smashing it. The Krishna says, this is what the demons are like. And then the purport's probably bang, bang, like that. So, I mean, Krishna does too. So it's annihilating that demoniac mentality. And also just hearing Bhagavad Gita and studying the Bhagavad Gita, it purifies us of, those anarthas and those miscreant qualities. And then reestablishing the principles of religion, because this is the principles of religion, Dharman tu sakshat Bhagavad Pranitam, that Dharma or religion is established by the Lord himself. And so the Lord himself is speaking Dharma, speaking religious principles here in Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada wants to present that. Krishna descended for this to speak this Bhagavad Gita, and he had a purpose for speaking it. And that is to reestablish the living entity's lost relationship with him. So Srila Prabhupada said, our purpose in presenting Bhagavad Gita is the same purpose for which Krishna spoke it, the same purpose for which he descended. Janaki? Go ahead.
Hi, Krishna. I was just thinking, it was interesting that it says that Arjuna is Lord Krishna's first disciple, but it's the same paragraph. He says Krishna first spoke Bhagavad Gita to the sun god, and I was just thinking, like, that verse, it also is the same thing. Like, millions of years ago, I spoke the same thing to the sun god, but you remember, or I remember all my lives, but you don't remember any of yours. But isn't that like kind of confusing? How is Arjuna the first disciple, or why would he be considered the first one?
Well, the first one in this appearance, in Krishna's most recent appearance on earth.
Okay, that makes sense.
I just muted myself. Let's go on then. I think I'm not gonna make notes now, otherwise it's too much for me. Otherwise I can't see all you guys, and I don't know who's got their hand up. All right, so let's read. If there's time, we'll make notes at the end about these things. Oh, Trish is making notes. All right, Devin?
The Krishna consciousness movement is essential in human society, for it offers the highest perfection. How this is so is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Unfortunately, mundane wranglers have taken advantage of Bhagavad Gita to push forward the demonic propensity and mislead people regarding this.
Jai. So here Prabhupada is giving us in a nutshell philosophy of Krishna consciousness. You know there are 5 topics of the Bhagavad-Gita. Does anyone know what they are?
God,
Okay, God,
the soul,
the soul,
karma,
karma,
Karma, time, and material
material
nature.
nature. Good. All right. So here he's talking about most, if not all of those things. He's saying everyone should know how God or Krishna is great. So that's God. And everyone should know the factual position of the living entity. So that's the living entities. And then he's talking about how the living entities are serving illusion in different varieties of the 3 modes of material nature. So that's the material energy. And thus wandering. Yeah, so their wanderings are due to their karma. And then what was the last thing? Time. He doesn't mention time here specifically. But basically, he's kind of giving a nutshell here of the birds and the bees of spiritual life. All right. Yeah, and he's not happy with people who misinterpret the Bhagavad Gita to push forward their demoniac propensities. Prabhupada gets so angry because he would be like, if you have your views, fine, we're not saying that you can't have your own opinions and your own, perspectives, but don't use Krishna and Bhagavad Gita as a mouthpiece for your views, say them in your own name. Don't make Krishna, don't try to project your things onto Krishna and misconstrue what Krishna is saying so that he comes out that he's saying what you want him to say. I will get really upset about that because it's just really bad etiquette, to say the least. So he calls them mundane wranglers. They're mundane. They're like, someone look up in the dictionary what wrangler is apart from a jeans company. So mundane means they're taking the transcendental message of Bhagavad Gita and they're just bringing it down to their mundane level.
I have a mood and mission
Oh
comment.
yeah, okay.
So he says, everyone should know how God or Krishna is great. And then later he says, each and every being has to show it for its own interests. So the mission clearly includes like getting the word out to everybody.
Okay, good. That was very perceptive. So yeah, mission is that each and every living being has to hear this Bhagavad Gita. And we see that was very much Prabhupada's mood. He wanted this Bhagavad Gita, all of his books, to be distributed widely, like mass distribution, right? So that everybody could have the opportunity to get this knowledge. Did anyone find a definition?
A person engaging in a lengthy and complicated quarrel.
Okay, I'm going to repeat that. A person engaging in a lengthy or complicated quarrel or dispute. So that's what they did. They took the straightforward, concise, eloquent conclusion of Bhagavad Gita and they twisted it into a lengthy, complicated, what was the rest of it? Quarrel or dispute. Yeah, and because of how they complicated it, then they argue about it. So stay away from mundane wranglers. It's like when what's his name, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, was it him who spoke, or was it Prakashananda Saraswati? One of them spoke, Vedanta to Lord Chaitanya for 7 days. Which one was it? Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And he spoke for 7 days continuously, and then he said to Lord Chaitanya, he said, do you have any questions or comments? You've been sitting there so silently. And then he said, well, actually the message of Vedanta is very clear, but you've made it so, he said it's so simple and clear, but you've made it so convoluted and complicated and impossible to understand by your explanations. So that's what these mundane wranglers do. They explain things in such a way that nobody can understand anything. Word jugglery. They juggle their words around and then people think that, oh, if I can't understand it, it's because these people are so intelligent that it's just like their explanations are just way above my level of intelligence. But actually, no, it should be clear. A good teacher is one who takes a complicated thing and makes it understandable for the student. A bad teacher is one who takes a simple thing and makes it so complicated that nobody can understand. So that's what these mundane wranglers do. They take a simple message, just, you're eternal servant of Krishna. Constitutional position is to serve, surrender to Krishna and serve him. Haribol. It's very simple. And they make a whole thing because they don't want to accept the real message. Okay, let's go on here. Jeremiah? You're gonna have to scoot or the computer needs to, oh, you got it. Okay, good.
People in general, especially in this age of Kali, are enamored by the external energy of Krishna, and they wrongly think that by advancement of material comforts, every man will be happy. They have no knowledge that the material or external nature is very strong, for everyone is strongly bound by the stringent laws of material nature. A living entity is happily the part and parcel of the Lord, and thus his natural function is to render immediate service to the Lord. By the spell of illusion, one tries to be happy by serving his personal sense gratification in different forms, which will never make him happy. Instead of satisfying his own personal material senses, he has to satisfy the senses of the Lord. That is the highest perfection of life. The Lord wants this, and he demands it. One has to understand the central point of Bhagavad-Gita. Our Krishna consciousness movement is teaching the whole world the central point. And because we are not polluting the theme of Bhagavad-Gita as it is, anyone seriously interested in deriving benefit by studying the Bhagavad-Gita must take help from the Krishna consciousness movement for practical understanding of Bhagavad-Gita under the different guidance of the Lord. We hope, therefore, that people will derive the greatest benefit by studying Bhagavad-Gita as it is, as we have presented it here. And if even one man becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, we shall consider our attempt a success. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, 12th May 1971, Sydney,
Bye,
Australia.
Prabhupada. Okay, so this ending paragraph was really nice. What did you get from it?
This movement is teaching the whole world the central point of serving Krishna's senses.
Okay, good. So the central point. What else? Partha?
Prabhupada cares about people. At the end of the day, his main goal is to save people,
Yeah.
not writing a book or for fame or philosophy or to know or to teach. He just wants people.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah, because many people write books because they want to be a famous author. They want to be published. They want to be immortalized in their writings and whatever. And Prabhupada he just cares about people. Like Partha said, he's doing this because he wants people to be happy. He says they're trying to be happy by serving the sense gratification, but they have to satisfy the senses of the Lord, and then they can be happy. So he's just pointing out the way to be happy in life and be elevated. Yeah, thank you. Mimi, did you want to say something? Okay.
I'll say something.
Let's take Janaki first and then Jeremiah. And then Max. Janak.
Hi, it's Casey again. Just a small point. I just think it's really interesting how Prabhupada is like simultaneously like Partha said, establishing how he cares about people and he cares about saving people, but then he's also like giving this very compelling message of like we're suffering and we can never be happy in this material world. So like there's this like, I mean, I feel like I've noticed this in Prabhupada's books before. There's this simultaneous like sweetness and also like heaviness that he balances so well. It's like a perfect combination that really like, I think intrigues the reader to read on and keeps them like hooked on like what he's about to say and like keeps them wanting to learn from him and see what his points are.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually out of his compassion that he's making those heavy points, because we're so convinced that we can be happy in this world. So he just keeps hammering that you can't be happy by material sense gratification. You know, he's just trying to drill it into our thick skulls because we're so addicted to this concept that, you know, if I just get more money, if I just have, you know, a a different friend or a better spouse or something nicer to eat or a new car or whatever, that I'm going to be happy. We're so hooked on that concept. So he just keeps repeating it. Yeah, because as long as we're attached to that idea, then we're not going to be able to let go of it. And until we let go of it, we can't fully embrace Krishna consciousness. We're always going to be like putting wood on the fire with one hand and pouring water on it with the other one. And the fire's never going to really go. And we're just going to end up smoldering, not being happy materially or spiritually. So he's heavy so that we'll let go. And then he's compassionate and caring so that we'll just embrace Krishna consciousness. And then we can just put fuel on the fire, make the fire hot, and feel, be in the fire of Krishna consciousness, be fired up. Yeah. Okay, what else about Prabhupada's mission here in this purport? And this last paragraph, Trish? Okay, so Trish says that she's getting an overall mood from the preface of urgency. Can you explain that a little bit?
I mean,
He just he's continually repeating like this, the same points. Like you just said the words, drill it in. That just like, explains like this mood of urgency. He's like trying to drill it into our minds, like, take this, you're not happy, we're supposed to be happy, we're supposed to serve God, like read this book, figure it out. He's just very like, his compassion is tinged with urgency.
Yeah, the urgency is something that we see in Prabhupada's books, throughout all Prabhupada's books. He really has this sense that now you've got the human form of life. It's so short, you've already probably wasted the first 20 years of it just growing up. And then the last, that's Prahlad Maharaj's whole thing, that then you're going to be old and senile, you're not going to be able to do anything. And he's like, you've got to make the use of it. Otherwise, you don't know where you're going. You don't want to take birth again. It's all suffering. Just do it. It's be a devotee now. It's very much like that. Okay. Yes. Wait, did we take Casey, Janaki, or whoever had their hand up? Okay.
It's Janaki now.
Rosa. Max, your peripheral vision. It's not good. Let Rosa go. She's already logged into the audio. Go ahead, Rosa.
Okay. Well, I was thinking that this last sentence is maybe it's both mission and mood. Since he's saying that like even if there's one person who will become a devotee, that's a success. So that's like he's also like pointing out the same like principle of authenticity and like being just like we don't need followers and like we just want to do this pure thing, and even one person is enough to prove that.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, this I also was so inspired when I read this last paragraph that Prabhupada's, he's doing all this work, whole Bhagavad-Gita, establishing a worldwide movement, and he's thinking, if just one person becomes a pure devotee, we'll consider our attempt a success. It's a mission to make pure devotees, at least one, at least one, hopefully, by Krishna's grace. Okay. Also, you could say, I'll just add something because I noticed that he said that just before that, he said, anyone seriously interested in deriving benefit by studying the Bhagavad Gita must take help from the Krishna consciousness movement for practical understanding of Bhagavad Gita under the direct guidance of the Lord. So that's also part of the mission, is to establish the Krishna consciousness movement, to establish an international society where anybody who wants to study Bhagavad Gita can come and take help from devotees to get the practical understanding. Because I remember when I first read the Bhagavad Gita, I was very clearly getting the message of devotional service. This is before I met devotees or had any association with devotees, but I was reading, I was just getting this message, you have to do devotional service, you have to do devotional, but I didn't know what devotional service was or how to do it. And then when I finally met devotees, I was like dying to ask him. And then I walked in late, so the class was going on, so I couldn't say anything. As soon as the class was finished, I raised my hand and I said, what is devotional service? I want to do devotional service. How do you do it? Yeah. So that's, we need the association of devotees to understand practically, what does that mean? How do we apply this philosophy in our lives? That's a mission. So Prabhupada did that. He wrote the Bhagavad Gita. He established ISKCON so that we could understand it. Yeah, I'll tell you later. I want to take all the questions. Max, can you log in, please?
So I sound weird. Okay, so everyone should know that a living entity is eternally a servant, and that unless one serves Krishna, one has to serve illusion in different varieties through modes of nature. Gotcha. Okay. Everyone should know that a living entity is eternally a servant, and that unless one serves Krishna, one has to serve illusion in different varieties of the three modes of material nature, and thus wander perpetually within the cycle of birth and death. So the term servant, I think I've heard this in a purport describe that that terminology of servant is kind of materially tinged, at least of how we can conceive of it with the conditioned understanding. So could we elaborate on what the transcendental understanding of the term servant is?
All right, everyone. Max is going to tell us now what the transcendental understanding of the word servant is. Go ahead.
Servant, transcendental terminology. To have a loving and personal exchange with a divine person that is not selfishly motivated and is completely naturally and constitutionally inspired out of a pure desire to reciprocate.
Whoa, that is the best definition I heard of being a servant in Krishna's service ever.
Jai Super Soul.
Thank you, Max. So you see from that it's not like a servant, you're not a slave, where you serve somebody that doesn't care about you, that just is whipping you to work more, work harder. But it's actually like a loving exchange. It's reciprocal, and Krishna is not selfishly motivated, and nor are we. And it's just all based on love, and it's inspired from both sides. So, Evan.
There was a devotee that showed me a clip of Prabhupada's lecture that said there's no distinction in the absolute world. There's no distinction between master and servitor. Can you talk about that, like what it actually means?
Yeah, because Krishna considers himself to be the servant of his devotees. All right, Trish is going to elaborate on that.
Well, I just wanted to say that.
Sorry. You had to raise your hand.
I mean, Krishna is purchased by the devotion of his devotees, and he is always serving us, like constantly. Like really, he serves us more than we could ever serve him.
What are some examples in Shastra where Krishna serves his devotees?
Sri Dhamma.
Okay, Sri Dhamma. He washes Sri Dhamma's feet. What else? He drives Arjuna's chariot. What else? Okay, he's in our hearts, guiding us and helping us all the time. He supplies all the necessities of life to all the living entities.
Give us the Maya world so we can prescribe it.
Oh my God, the Maya world. Where's Victoria?
Let's go, Verdun.
Yeah.
I have an idea.
He's inspired.
self-sufficient philosopher who's been fulfilling the desires of everyone since time immemorial, from Shusha Upanishad. It's fulfilling our desires. Here we are, absolute schmucks, that turned our back on him and came to a world because we wanted to enjoy without him. And, oh, sorry, I was muted all that time. I was saying that Krishna is in the Isha Upanishad, it says Krishna is a self-sufficient philosopher who's been fulfilling the desires of everyone since time immemorial. And I was just saying how, here we are, we turned our back on Krishna, we came to this material world to enjoy without him, and still he's fulfilling all of our desires and providing everything that we need to be happy without him. Incredible, right? So what to speak of serving his pure devotees like Arjuna and carrying Nanda Maharaj's shoes on his head and doing little dances for the elderly gopis in Vrindavan.
You taught Radharani dancing.
Teaching Radharani dances. He's serving even the fallen conditioned souls. Okay, so we're very fortunate that we have this opportunity to get closer to Krishna by studying his words in the Bhagavad-Gita. And that was Srila Prabhupada's preface. So we're going to wrap it up today because it's over time. Thank you all for coming, and we shall see you tomorrow, same time, same place. We'll start chapter 1 tomorrow. We're going to skip the introduction because it's long, and but if you want, you can just read that on your. We'll probably read some bits of the last part of the introduction, and then we'll go into observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Okay, I'm going to close the meeting because I don't want people to feel bad about leaving in its time. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Gaura Premanandi.